This was me, racing World Cups, living out my dream, pushing my limits on some of the gnarliest tracks in the world. Then my body started shutting down, injuries kept piling up, and before I knew it, I was in hospital getting news that flipped my life upside down. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Now, I'm training for a marathon, learning to swim, and this year I'll be taking on my first Ironman triathlon. It's not the plan I had, but maybe the challenge I needed. For as long as I can remember, downhill racing was my life. I travelled, I raced, pushed myself to the absolute limit. The goal was always the same: go faster, get stronger, chase the dream, and maybe one day become a professional. Every crash, every break, every setback, it's all part of the sport, and I loved it. You're riding well, you crash, you break, you get injured, you heal up, you rehab, and you crack on. But then when the crashes keep coming again and again and again, it starts to wear the body down, and you start to question why you're doing it. But all of the bone, muscle, and other structural issues I've always had, and I've always known how to rehab and how to deal with them to get back to riding and racing. It wasn't until I was in Europe last year following the Downhill World Cup that I noticed something was seriously off. My energy was all over the show. I was hungry, thirsty, tired, and just generally didn't feel like myself. I spoke to friends and their families who were also at the races, and they told me that I'd probably smashed my noggin and had a concussion, and that I should stay off my phone and take it easy. Given downhill is such a high impact sport, and I did have a big crash in Leogang, I thought this was probably the case. Nonetheless, I decided to press on. I didn't fly halfway across the world to sit and watch. I went through track walk and practice and started to notice my vision was seriously deteriorating. Everything was blurry. I could barely see the details of the track. People looking at me, I couldn't see what their facial expressions were until they were right in front of me. And then in the night, I could only sleep for about half an hour before having to get up and piss. I felt so thirsty, I was just chugging the water, but then I didn't want to chug too much water because then I would have kept having to get up and wee. And I didn't want to compromise on my sleep. So that's when I got on Google and started calling Annalise back home so we could try and get to the bottom of what was going on. So trusty Dr. Google told us that all the symptoms were something that of a type 1 diabetic, and I didn't know much about diabetes at the time, but I thought there's no way, it can't be right. So me, being my stubborn self, in disbelief, I decided to do the qualifying round anyway, and it felt pretty good. I couldn't see stuff all, but maybe that helped because I couldn't see how rough the track was. I was just in it, and the rocks were coming at me quicker than I could see them, and it didn't go too bad. I missed out on moving to the next round, but for me at the time and given the circumstances, I think I rode pretty well. But after that, I decided the right thing to do was to go down to the pharmacy and get a blood glucose test. So I rode my bike down to the pharmacy and told them that I wanted to check my glucose, and they said, "Are you diabetic?" And I said no, €5 whatever it was, and they tested it and my blood sugar was absolutely through the roof. It was around 570 milligrams per decilitre, or if you're in Australia, that's somewhere over 30 millimoles, which is crazy high. And they said, "You are diabetic?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And they said, "Well, I think you better go to hospital." So I rode back, jumped in the transit and drove myself to the closest hospital and checked in, and all went from there. If you want to see the diagnosis That's in my last video. You can go and check that out. I'll see if I can chuck a link up here somewhere in there on the screen. I definitely didn't know what to do with myself for the next bit and how to move forward, so it took a little bit of time to figure that out. And I still don't really know how or why I got it, but it's an autoimmune disease, so one day my body just decided it didn't need the pancreas and decided to shut it down. And now I have to live off insulin pens for the rest of my life, and yeah, that's just the new normal. But here's the thing, it wasn't just the diabetes. I was stuck in a cycle of injuries. Every time I start feeling strong again, bang, something else would blow out. Knees, shoulders, back, you name it, I've probably stuffed it. When your body won't let you do the one thing that you love, it's rough. I had to make the call, keep forcing something that wasn't working or find a new challenge. So that's why I've set myself a goal of running a 3-hour marathon, a half Ironman, and maybe even a full Ironman later this year. So I know most of you probably follow me for my mountain bike content, and don't stress, I'm not quitting the bikes. I'm just shifting the focus a little bit right now to try and keep myself motivated and really test out what the new rig is capable of. You know, like I'm insulin dependent now, and there's a lot more to take into account when we're talking about sports performance and athleticism. And I'm just taking on a new challenge, moving in a slightly different direction. But I'm still going to be riding, and I haven't forgotten about that. But, you know, right now, just focusing on some new challenges and kind of see what I'm capable of, which is really exciting. I think after a while, competing at such a high level in downhill and enduro, you sort of expect a certain level out of yourself. If you don't meet the expectations, then it becomes really unmotivating and it starts to wear thin on you. And yeah, I'm just looking for a new challenge at the moment. And yeah, don't worry, we haven't forgotten about bikes. We're just swapping the full face for a set of runners and some Lycra, and we're just trying to make some lemonade, so we'll see what we can do. Yeah, I'm not too sure about the Lycra just yet. This isn't just about running marathons or doing Ironmans. It's about finding the craziest, hardest, most ridiculous challenges I can and seeing if I can survive them, now with type 1 diabetes. Want me to run up a mountain, do some brutal 24-hour event, try some absolutely cooked endurance race? I'm in. This is just the beginning. You're going to see the highs, the lows, and how we're running at it head first with type 1 diabetes. So if you're keen to follow along, smash the subscribe button and stay tuned to see what's next.